throughout the video and the communication you're using. So basically what we're going to do is like you can talk about yourself, what you do, and what communication style you use.
Yep. Okay, well, my name's Stephanie, so thank you for coming and interviewing me today. For the last 3 years, I've been lecturing and tutoring and coordinating at QUT in accounting. The last 10 years, I've been predominantly lecturing and tutoring at universities as well. And look, my communication style varies depending on who my audience is. So whilst being a lecturer and a tutor, my audience can vary based upon who I am talking to. So I deal with both students as well as professional staff. So what I might do is just explain the different types of communication styles that are used with both. So for instance, with students, because I'm delivering complex information to students, so before I even start off a semester, what I usually try and do is inform students of their own learning technique. So once they are able to understand what their learning technique is, through my communication they'll be able to focus on what best learning technique is going to help them to retain the information. So my first communication with students is how do you learn best, which is visual, audio and kinesthetic. So that is that I'm going to present to you information in a visual manner, you're going to hear me speak, and the other way of learning is by you actually practicing. So I explain those 3 types of learning and communication techniques to students, so then that way they're able to get control of their own learning ability and focus on which one of those techniques actually helps them to retain information and communicate better. That's dealing with students. I don't tend to have a lot of email correspondence with students, so it tends to be face-to-face, and they prefer face-to-face. It gives them the ability to be able to ask questions as well as interact with one another. So that sort of communication tends to be face-to-face. The other audience that I deal with on a regular basis will be professional staff. However, when communicating with professional staff, be it other professional staff or academic staff, it tends to be via email. We don't often have a lot of face-to-face interaction other than at the beginning of the semester before we start a course. It just tends to make it easier that way because I am part-time, so then that way communication is able to happen, you know, within a short period of time, rather than having to set up a meeting and then go to that meeting and meet with them. So the excuse me, communication style with students is face-to-face through various means of helping them understand first visual, audio and kinesthetic, and with professional staff it is usually via email.
So I can see you're very passionate about what you do in your teaching and your profession. Do you tend to deal differently with the students from different background? Do you find yourself that you might need to, like, you know, communicate with certain students like verbally and with some non-verbally? Like, do you find yourself doing that?
I think one of the things that I have learnt over time is to pronounce my words. That's one of the things that, regardless of who the audience is in relation to students, because I do deal with a lot of non-English speaking backgrounds, that I tend to pronounce my words. And I've been given a lot of feedback in the past that my pronunciation for them is a lot easier to understand than some lecturers or some teachers that may talk really quickly or that may talk you know, with less pronunciation in their words. What was the question? Do you change, like maybe you find yourself like you communicate with certain students more verbally and with certain students not? No, the thing is, it's a very limited time, 50 minutes, which is usually the tutorials where you get to interact with students. I will often give students an opportunity in my classes to do group work, so then I am interacting with smaller groups. However, it does tend to be a larger group. I won't necessarily, because I don't communicate with them much over email, I won't necessarily change the way in which I communicate with them, you know, face to face or via email, because most of the times it is face to face.